Test, test, test. We should be starting in a few minutes.
we're 3 minutes away from the actual start. The mic is on. We're 3 minutes away from the actual start. This is the sound check. I am attempting to check the sound. If this had been an actual emergency, you would have been instructed where to turn in your area for news and official information. It's like burning the pews. All righty. The early bird special.
To answer your question, I am trying to get this guy that he's projecting, and that way I can have this guy as a remote and that's not projecting. I'm intending to have two computers running.
I am going to assume that before Dave starts flipping pictures, he's going to hand me his thumb drive, and I'm going to start up. Is it PowerPoint?
There's it's PowerPoint.
All right.
And you have PowerPoint.
I'll start up PowerPoint, and I'll get out my PowerPointer and hand it to Dave and run away. And next time we'll try to do it better. "30 seconds.
Some of that, but I do Photoshop element. And there are elements where I can understand and see it. Photoshop itself is that's true. So what was the name of that? Fast image viewer. Fast. So it's not a person sitting there on the other end of the connection. Unless they have a really bored group of people. Yeah. It's a fast utility. You can do. I think we better sync now because music's going to be something.
Okay. Welcome to the afternoon session of the Silicon Valley Fourth Interest Group. I'm Kevin Appert. I'm the program chairman. For those of you who've never been here before, thank you. For those of you who've never been here before, welcome. And for those of you who've been here before, welcome. It's good to have both kinds of folks for obvious reasons. So I've scribbled down a couple of points I'd like to make about getting a little more momentum going. The first thing here is that in order to name our YouTube page, we'd like you to subscribe, because if enough people subscribe to our YouTube videos, we get to name it SVFIG or Fourth Interest Group or something of a point that we should maybe discuss or reach a consensus, or maybe Dennis will decide. And this morning, I meant to say thank you, Dennis, for streaming us on the web. So let's have a round of applause for Dennis. He's been doing it for quite a while, and Sam before him, and it's one of the best things that could possibly have happened to this organization. And I'm duly grateful, and you should all be too. So subscribe to the YouTube videos so that we can have our own name on the YouTube video channel. The second thing.
You're going to put that in the how to subscribe in the.
Dennis will help you subscribe, or
either through the email.
I will, or
It's YouTube.
how hard could it be? Anyway, we'll figure it out offline.
Too many lead medals in the contest.
I understand what you're saying.
And trust me, people have said,
Yeah. You know what you could do?
help me with that? Wipe my ass?
You know what you could. This is actually a real suggestion, regardless of how firmly my tongue is implanted in my cheek most of the time. You can ask Google silly ass questions like this. In fact, I bet you if I picked up my phone and pressed the little microphone icon that's on the home page and said, how do I subscribe to a YouTube channel? It would give me a link or a list of pages or something. It would Google it for me. But we digress. All right, the second thing I'd like you to do is join Meetup, because we have a certain number of people on our Meetup list. And the more people we have, the better we look to people out there in the world. One of the things it says on our Meetup page is you can join us by going to our YouTube channel. So it all wraps around. The next thing we can do, more Meetup, is go to Meetup, and when you're going to come to one of these meetings, you mark it as you're going to, you get the Meetup notice that says there's going to be a SVFIG meeting. You can just check that off that you're coming if you're coming. If you're not coming, we're not interested so much. Yes?
Is it possible to send a meetup notification to the announced list somehow?
No, people have to subscribe themselves to Meetup. I can't subscribe you ne'er-do-wells as much as I would like to.
Replace the announced list.
I'll just start sending out to the announced list. Go to Meetup. This is how you subscribe. If you don't like it, get over it. Sorry. It's just so hard sending out this, changing the month name every month in this subject line, 11 months a year, and doing that, it's just too hard, so I can't manage it anymore.
That's why you create a bot.
You could take it over. Anyway, so go to Meetup, mark, I'm coming to the SVFIG meeting. And finally, what I'd like you all to do is go to Google, and type in, when is the next SVFIG meeting? And what should come up is the agenda page. Go through the list of the links that it gives you and pick out the agenda page and click on it. And what that'll accomplish is we'll slowly train Google to know that when somebody asks, when is the next SVFIG meeting, the answer they want is the agenda page. So if you all do that, you can report the results to me or not. Frankly, I don't really care, just so long as you do it.
So does SVFIG have a wiki page?
I would expect not. You could take that over. Get with Ed. I don't know. Do we need one? What would that accomplish? Do we have a blog? You could start blogging.
Wikipedia is technically partnered with Google, and they're like the first couple links. So,
I see.
the subject header, you'll have as a wiki, which then can point to the YouTube channel and the meetup.
Now, technically, the meeting announcement is a wiki. It's GitHub's presentation of the
All right. So does anyone else have any announcements, short assertions to the contrary, blather, slander, libel, expositions of what the difference is between slander and libel? All right. In that case, now since John isn't paying attention, we're going to say, okay, John, you're up.
Thank you.
And introduce yourself and then tell us why it is you're standing in front of the room.
I hope that doesn't mess. Hi, my name is John Harbold, and my current project is porting G4 to the NUTX real-time operating system. Do we need this? Can this go up? Hello. How do I make that go up?
Up.
Yeah. Perfect. So let me draw it out. One of the big problems that I had was getting something called the nut shell. I wanted to run this virtually. One of the problems I found out was that we all know about serial ports. Ports on a PC. Let's see, we have, I believe it's COM0, or in Linux, this is dev slash TTYS0. They have a, what is it? It's the base address at 0x3f8. The IRQ is 4. Well, the problem is, excuse me, this is not 4. It's known as IRQ4. That's not the same as interrupt 4. Okay. After about 6 weeks, I found out that IRQ4 really is interrupt 36. So when I redid my configuration, lo and behold, it came up and nutshell worked. Now I'm trying to do is get the rest of G4 running in there, and all I'm now doing is just doing the build things, you know, where you get compilation errors and load errors. And with any luck, by the next meeting, I should be able to get G4 to come up with an OK, you know, the fourth prompt, like that. Yes?
So what is NUTX BIOS?
What NUTX buys you is a preemptive real-time operating system that can be built for a myriad, and I mean a myriad of processors.
Is it open source?
Yes, it's open source. And the nice thing about it is I'm using QEMU to run a 486 version of NUTX, which means I can run it on my PC and this thing will run just independently, which is really nice. Because one of the things you can do is you can build your application, whatever it is, get it working, and then when you go to your target, which could be, you know, an ARM or whatever hardware, then all they have to do there is just make sure that your
drivers work for the different hardware that you're going to use. And my plan to do is to be able to build this NetX as an ARM, load it onto a Raspberry Pi, and then turn that Raspberry Pi into a USB hub. Now remember, you can buy USB hubs and they don't have processors in them, they just have a little chip. Well, I'm going to do a software version of that just to show that it's possible. And then from there, who knows? You know, I could take like Ting's oscilloscope that you did several years ago when we were in the other building that got demolished, and be able to do that as an actual USB device. So also the other thing is, when I do get this to it like a Raspberry Pi, I'll be able to have my serial link go through USB, so I could do all my development with my computer, but it's hooked up to my actual device. And that should be really nice, because then I can develop who knows what. And that'll be for future things, and hopefully I can present at Fourth Day some of my nice stuff that I've done. So that's all the babblage I'm going to be doing.
Thank you very much. Let's, while the screen is warming up and Dave is moseying to the front of the room, let's, all right. Well, while we're reaching that point of readiness, you know which end of this to point at the business end?
Not yet.
Well, Dave will show you. Anyway, like I was saying, we're going to wait for the projector to warm up, and first of all, make sure it's on. Does it have little numbers on the display?
It has little numbers on the display.
Okay, you see the green button?
Oh.
You found the green button.
That's the green button.
All right.
I have a point.
Tell them how to advance the slides, and then we're there. So coming up today are really exciting presentations. At 1:15, we're going to have Dave Jaffe and Dennis Rufer talking about the Baker Fair photos. And now the projector is warmed up and lit up, and we're happier than we were. All right, at 1:40, Brad Nelson's going to talk about the haiku of things. 2:30, it's Wishbone B4 Pipeline Busmaster Circuits of Doom with Sam Falvo. And at 3:15, Michael, you were right. But Michael Schultz is going to talk about GA144 in action. All right. Literacy is such a wonderful thing. Now I'm going to click that, press the F5, and run away.
And here you corrected the order.
It says top billing.
Yeah, you had to remind me, didn't you? This is the steam-powered thing that's always there. And I take pictures of it almost every year. Well, yes, they take it away, and then it comes back the next year. And it's always cute. I'm not sure that it's much more than a printing press. That's, I think, what they do, but it's always fun.
This fair is just down the street from Applied Biosystems, where we used to meet, which is now a construction site. It was a vacant lot.
And I never went to it up there at the Applied Biosystems. And this is just a seating area that was cute. This isn't in order. But that I have, that you captured them in. I can't remember what order we were in. This is a robot that was coming around and not doing much of anything.
It was a cute robot. Yes. And because of the shadow, I didn't get a great picture of this spider.
It's an ant.
Oh, is this an ant? Is that what it was?
Tell by the carapace?
No, I can't. Okay.
It rolls and you manipulate the legs with levers.
Oh, okay.
But does it eat small children in a single bound?
This was if you can almost see the motor back over here, this is a powered kayak.
Just a bad photo. Okay, but you can tell me that the lights. Still a bad photo. Okay.
It's still a bad photo. Yes. It actually does show up online. So, and here is a transformer pounding on a car. It's about all I could make out of it.
If it's a Prius, I'm in favor.
And those are sort of connected, and you could actually see them pounding on it when I got there. And this was a squid that would move around based upon, I think, these little joysticks over here.
Did it have fire as well? That's a joystick.
This did not have fire. No, this one. Yeah, it did something. I can't remember.
It had LEDs and it had a rotating coil wire in there so it articulated what it was doing.
Yeah.
It looks better at night.
At night, I wasn't there at night. as the picture describes. What was this guy? This was I believe, a flying car. This thing actually flew at some point. Yes, it's I can just barely make out what it was. I could point with the pointer. Those, if you could actually read them, which I was hoping I could, but I can't. Anyways, now we get to the fire ones. Back on the side. And a few others out on the, for those that don't know, this is the East Hall where we were. And out on the east of there, if I remember right, something like that, is always all these open things. And this was a group of just displays. And this is the Crucible folks. They're always there, playing with fire.
Blacksmiths.
Blacksmiths, yes. They are blacksmiths. And more of them playing with glass this time. They were doing, this guy over here was doing glass blowing. This is the mousetrap that's always there, and I've never seen them actually use it. Yeah. I've heard them in the crowd around them one time when it was running, but that was about it. Yes, they have a schedule right there, I think. And a dragonfly. That was cute. This was, I can't remember the exact name of the band anymore. Oh, two of them on there. And this was a wheel, drivable wheel. And this is the start of the IoT for fun. I didn't have many pictures of that. The Wi-Fi boy was sharing our booth. And that was, these guys, those were
Derek and his son Ricky.
Derek and Ricky.
Yeah, Ricky is the
Okay.
Saw the remote, Wi-Fi kids.
He made all the Wi-Fi kits. Okay. Cool.
If they actually were able to sell product, I could probably sell all of them. So many people wanted that product, and it's just not funny.
Yeah.
It's so retro right now, so in.
Right.
It's selling. They can sell.
They could have probably sold more than they could carry. Yeah. That had more attraction than the IoT for fun. It was got a lot of people. It did get a lot of activity. Mostly because you couldn't tell what it was. And got them in there, and then we got talking to them. So it worked. I'm not exactly sure what the magic was, but it worked. So who cares? Right across the aisle was these little dinky quad-core computers. And I was looking at doing those type of things right now. So that's why that was there. Oh, this.
Prices in euros?
Yes, they are, as a matter of fact. Because that's where they're from.
Yeah, they're all Windows 10 centric. Upcore basically sells the hardware in the cases, all the aluminum cases, heat sinks. Very beautiful. I took quite a few pictures of them.
Yeah.
They're big into video for home surveillance, possibly computers to some degree, and they are Linux compatible.
Yes, they're Linux compatible, and that's why I was looking at them. Is the
It's a step away from the norm, but the thing is that their power consumption, heat generation, is really off the scale.
Yes.
All the other.
Compared to all of the ARM type of things, the Intel ones are very high power. Yeah, and it's I can't remember what it stands for. It's the NUC, the NUCs. That's the generic term that's starting to be used for all of these mini PCs. Next unit, that's right. That's it. That's an Intel term, but they're cute little computers. They're fanless mini computers.
69 euros, like $80.
Yeah, that doesn't include the housing as well.
Right. That's bare board.
What's the Raspberry Pi going for these days?
35.
If that.
Right. It depends on where you get them. They have not succeeded in getting an Intel processor down that low. That's why ARM is still winning. They probably never will.
This is quad. It does come in a good package. Granted, the power draw is a little bit higher and it's a lot hotter when you're running.
But they are fanless.
Yes, they are.
All of these little dinky NUCs are fanless.
I'm running Linux on one right now.
So am I.
It's my, basically my storage device that I Samba do everything to. So.
Right. I'm using them for continuous integration test machines. This gets hooked to a target device, and then I talk over various serial ports to it, and very nice setup. Looks like I.
They do have headers on them.
Yes.
Which are similar to the Pi that you can actually attach sensors to as for them.
And it depends on which model you end up getting. These guys, the square one is not form factor Pi, but they have a version that is form factor Pi that will take a, I guess, shield, if that's what the Raspberry Pi things are called. Hats is what they call. So some of them are compatible, some of them aren't. This other thing here was a interesting router, CNC for a router, that basically just took a 4x8 sheet of plywood, tilted it slightly, and put the router up next to it and have two chains driving the router around. Great idea. Cheapest 3D printer I could see, although it's really only 2D. Yeah, yeah, that's what I see. This thing is a great idea. Under 500, yeah.
So you know, it's a bunch of pieces that you just pick up and pull, you set it on the plywood,
Yes.
and it then walks the router head around the plywood.
Right. You connect the chains to the corner of the plywood, your router in between, and it moves the router around.
And there are YouTube videos.
Probably, yeah, yeah.
So can we move this along?
Sure. Move on.
Other great speakers coming up.
This is a flying wing. Dave's photos. Microphone.
Thank you, Dennis.
You're welcome.
Okay. Well, here's my view of the scene. So I got there really early on Sunday, and they let us this far into the grounds, and so I had a chance to take some pictures before they opened it up at 10 o'clock. And this is the scene there. Bicycles, other stuff. Let's see, mousetrap in the distance. This is a rotating thing that two people sit on it, and they pedal, and that pedaling causes them to spin around. Yeah, closer view of that. This is some kind of sculpture. It doesn't look like it has any. Whoops. Doesn't look like it has any fire associated with it. Okay. Dragonfly. Here's a close-up of that sculpture. Looked pretty neat. This is called a Dave. Da Vinci, and I forgot what the E is, but I have a picture of the sign later on. So that was rolling around, again, before we actually got into the grounds. Got one of these Star Wars desert hovercrafts deals, but they cheated a little bit. Not a hovercraft. How disappointing. So this is a rideable chicken. He got a nice racing seat here. Guy was having fun. So there's a guy with a bike with big wheels, and he's wearing a megaphone system announcing how many more minutes until we actually get in. Guy in a train. There's little boxes in here that kids and parents could get into, drive around the area. Cardboard dinosaur, pretty neat. You just basically wear it, and it's pretty interesting concept. I think they actually sell these, but these are just little polygons that are taped together, and the tail goes back and forth, and there's enough flexibility down here to make it look interesting. Yeah, there's a person in there. Yeah, I can see how the cardboard is scored on the side here. Yeah. Oh, this is one of those Star Wars desert people dressed up as a desert person. Of course, you have your rolling cupcakes. Those are obligatory. Yeah. Also, now I'm inside in the Legoland building. They have this every year. It's just amazing how much stuff they have. Yeah, it just goes on and on. Trains and cities and stuff like that. Skyscrapers. Yeah. Yep. Look at that. Pretty neat. Where's the Ghostbusters? Here? Okay. Okay. Yeah, me too. Was it? Yeah, so this one was actually working, and with all the sounds and smells and stuff, so that brought back a lot of memories for me, because when I was at University of Michigan, we used punch cards to program the IBM 360 that they recently got. So yeah, I mean, yeah. So let's see. The way they work is the supply of cards is here. They drop down on here and then go from right to left as you type in here, and then when you're done, it ejected it over here and then up and up over here. So that's real. On drum, yeah, in here. Yeah, yeah. So we started at column 7 or 6.
Yeah. 5 was for the line number.
Right.
6 was like a combination.
No, a continuation. There was a one.
There was a I just remember a continuation.
From 7, 8.
Okay.
8 to 72.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I just read that. Oh,
Yeah. Right. So a lot of old computers in this section. Apple I reproduction, someplace. There it is. No, it's reproduction. Yeah. So that's the setup in a briefcase to make it portable. Yeah. This is a Kim 1, and yeah, it was fun. 6502. Yep. Yep.
Fun fact: this board actually was the foundation for the Commodore PET 2001 back in the day. That's what launched the Commodore line.
Yeah, lots of memories. This is my memory.
I could have gotten one of those.
Yeah.
I went to graduate school a year before.
Yeah. So I have one of these, and there's actually one of these in the Cantor Art Museum. So it now is a piece of art. So I bought one of these. Yeah, it's in a design show, so it's in the museum. I think it goes on for several more months.
Maybe we'll shoot over there.
Yeah. I still have mine. Yeah, that was nice working on these. So I bought it when it first came out, and I had, well, I don't want to go through all that here. Time. Apple II. This is a board that the person connected to this hand made for the Kim 1 to increase the memory size. So all this circuitry is now in this socket here to have it be able to address more memory. And whose arm is that, might you say? It's somebody we all know. Dwight Elvey was there. Yeah. So he's doing really well. Last year he messed up his hand, and that's pretty much back together, and he's looking pretty good. Some other things there. This is a TI computer, as I recall, right? Amiga, Commodore, Atari stuff, PET. Yeah. So this is a booth from Stanford, their product design program, and this is Zach, And he did this project in his class called Level the Noise. So this is a wearable noise monitor for kids with autism who are sensitive to noise. So it will accumulate a measure of how much noise they've been exposed to and give a warning on their wrist when the noise threshold is about to be exceeded, so they can find a more quiet place before they explode. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Right. Yeah. Yeah. A really loud audible. This is a pipe organ, I guess. I forgot, but that's what it looks like. Interesting ukulele. Levitating. So this one was interesting is in that not only it levitates, but I think it transmits power to the lamp to light up. So that's a little bit different. Yeah. Monster 6502. So this was pretty big. Yeah.
This is a discrete transistor.
Oh, right. Yeah.
The original NMOS 6502. All 3,501 transistors.
Yeah. So this is a board that just has the transistor equivalent of the original NMOS 6502, 3,501 transistors. Count them at your leisure.
They actually had it running stuff. Apparently they had it there last year, just barely done. This year they
Yeah. So it looks like a big IC with pads and stuff like that. So
It is actually follows the same layout.
yeah, wouldn't be a Maker Faire without R2D2, another robot. Oracle is getting into the chocolate business, in case you didn't know. No, this is just some kind of instrument that dispensed chocolate. I forgot the story behind it. If there was a, yeah. This was really interesting. This is called Endless OS. This is actually a self-contained computer, no big deal. But the neat thing is it doesn't need the internet. It has all these encyclopedias and other software built into it, so you could be put in an area without internet access, and they can do a lot of stuff. There's like 13 gigabytes of encyclopedic dictionary data in here. So they did a pretty good job of integrating all this, making it look good as well. Robot. I sort of lost track what this is. So this part looks like a robotic arm, and this part I don't even know if it's. Oh, this may be the provide a mechanism to translate the arm this way and that way. But I forgot what it does. Maybe it does this. So this is a like a router art, I guess. Yeah, here's it doing this. Yeah, so that was pretty neat. Snickerdoodle board. Seems like a small board with lots of places to connect I/O stuff. Yeah, these are all I/O pins all over here. You can look it up yourself if you're interested. Here it's plugged into another board to provide I/O. This is basically a light and switch board for kids to play around with. Here's one a 3D printer. This was pretty neat because it hung by these three arms coming down here, and if you control these arms, you basically can move the cutting tool or the feed tool and to any point. Yeah, I think there's 3 arms that come down, and I think they slide across up and down here, in order to give you a specific point down here. That builds up the 3D printing.
Right. That 3D printer design can be scaled up huge.
Right.
Very big system.
Yep. A lot of times you'll see this kind of mechanism on a simulator, where there's, you know, like a flight simulator or something, and very big again, to give you the feel of moving around. Yeah. Another robotic dinosaur. Some more stuff made out of cardboard. This thing was rolling around. This guy behind it is controlling it. This was sort of cute. These are just paper robots. They didn't operate or anything, but they're all different colors and perhaps different personalities. And they came in a kit, so you can just put it together yourself. But it's all just paper, no motors or anything. Yeah, wood mastodons. This is a 3D printed engine model made out of plastic. And so this thing was moving and the pistons were going up and down and stuff like that. So it was all, you know, moving, but, you know, obviously it's not operating, not producing any power. Gearbox. Here's one of them being made. Close up of the valving system. I sort of lost track what this is, so I don't know. I don't know if it's.
Well, that was the,
It's called Mighty Bot.
yeah, it was a project where they built computers for like underprivileged kids to get involved in.
Okay.
They created these 3D printing boxes that put the Raspberry Pi in.
Oh, okay.
And so that they can print their own boxes, create their own little shells and stuff.
Okay. I'll go through them real quick. See, 3D printed forms, 3D printed robotic hand prosthetic, pinball machines. You've seen these in previous years. The neat thing is they took out all these actuators and put them in isolation to see how they were close up, and there was a guy explaining all that. So that was pretty neat. This was there's a ball bearing that rolls around in here. This is a head-mounted monitor that looked pretty neat. Oh, these are bubbles being blown over here. Wouldn't be a Maker Faire without the giraffe walking around. And then I was around for Adam Savage's talk. Robot. See, I told you its name was Dave. Da Vinci Armored Vehicle Exhibit. Computer kits for kids. Little computer boards. Bose is getting into this speaker kit business, so called Bose Build. So I think this is the amplifier. There's a speaker. You get it in a box as a kid, and you put it together. So that was pretty neat. Some more microcontrollers. Here's the ant up closer. Sculptures. Nautilus, right? Or snail. Okay, and that's it. Could be. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you very much. Oh, I should mention, yesterday John sent us an additional 50 slides, photos that he took. We don't have time to go through them, but we'll post a link to that on the webpage. Thanks. You want to do it? Oh.
Hi all. So this talk is unfortunately in that category of ones that are a little bit more ad hoc than I would like, especially given that this is sort of my second go around with this sort of content. But nonetheless, here goes. So the background story is that inspired by Dr. Ting's bringing all those lovely Espertif boards, I of course wanted to do something with haiku and those boards in combination. And I figured that haiku fourth would benefit from some interesting inputs to the haikus, basically just hooking up things in the physical world to the haikus would be more feasible if I could do it over Wi-Fi. So I was thinking of things like knobs and buttons and so forth. But of course, one of the challenges that I'm still not happy with where I ended up, but there's the issue of the same origin policy. So there's the notion of, well, how am I going to have these devices actually talk to the Haiku Fourth site? The same origin policy, just for background, is sort of the it's been characterized. It's the cornerstone of the web's security model. It's basically the idea that if you go to site A and you interact with it, or you go to site B, the two cannot talk to each other at least directly. Now there are some exceptions to this. There's the notion that you can have a so-called CORS header, a cross-origin resource sharing header. It looks something like this. You can have have a page indicate that you want to grant access to others. You want to grant other origins access to the content of that page. And the way this works is that your origin opts into this. So if you're foo.com and you've got bar.com, normally what happens is foo.com can go and request a resource from bar.com, but with a few special exceptions, images and whatnot, it'll generally get rejected unless bar.com, in sending down its headers, indicates that certain origins are whitelisted. And so you can either explicitly list a set of host names, or you can do star and say, I'll let anyone talk to me. And the reason this is even talking to is of general concern is you've got sites like your bank or Gmail that love to just, I'll give you a cookie and just keep you logged in. And so there's a distinction between sort of any one session and how you talk to them. So what I had wanted to do was to use this mechanism to set things up. Now this is still problematic though, because it makes some assumptions that are not really ideal, because what you would ideally want is you've got some device and it goes to the internet, it talks to Haiku Fourth and somehow communicates with it. That's not great, because then you're routing everything through the server, so that's not going to be very fast. The haikus are running locally. On the other hand, this allows the possibility that the page can reach out and talk to the device, but of course, the device is unlikely to have some actual host that is canonically present on the internet. It's going to be something on the local network. So we'll see sort of how that peeps out as I demo things. And then the other question is, of course, what protocol to use. And partially here, there's more clever things that can be done, but basically they're all hard. So right now, the status of the web is basically, well, you can open an HTTP connection and you can do a request. You can leave that socket connection open and continually do the request, but it's not. It's something where you have to sort of keep asking. If you obviously with general sockets, you can do all sorts of things, but in the context of the web page, the other option is something called WebRTC, and basically the challenge with WebRTC is that it has an even more elaborate setup dance that you have to do. You have a server that acts as a broker between even peer-to-peer clients that can connect to it, but there's quite an elaborate back and forth that has to be done, and I figured that was out of scope for the time and effort that I wanted to put in. So all of this, of course, leads to the issue that I need a private network to do this on, because, for example, at Maker Faire, I had no idea what the Wi-Fi conditions would be, and in fact, they were far worse than I could have possibly imagined. And even in this space, for example, although we have not one but two semi-public Wi-Fi networks, the reality is that each of them requires sort of user interaction to do anything to actually get onto those networks. And this, in general, strikes me as a common problem with all of these kinds of Internet of Things devices, is that while you can certainly set up something in between to talk to, if your goal is to actually be on the actual internet, you've got a problem if your route to the internet bounces through several things. This afflicts other devices. I've got a what's it called, Google Chromecast, and the trouble is, of course, this device happily, for setup, will open up its own network, and you can connect to that and configure the device. But when all is said and done, it then attempts to connect to whatever network you've told it is its portal, is its conduit to the outside world. And the set of things that it can cope with in terms of what it has to click through or what it has to interact with is very limited. And the same thing happens. A lot of routers will frequently be able to even do some fairly sophisticated things, but ultimately, if they have to do something where there's a user interaction step, they're not gonna do very well at that in general. So this feels like a place where IoT still has. We need something that doesn't yet exist. There needs to be some easy way to get on the internet for devices that that are not going to be able to have an interactive workflow to have that happen. So anyways, I brought along this old thing, and there's an interesting story on these as well. So this is a WRT 24G from Linksys, and there's an interesting sort of backstory. I actually have this, and I think I have like 2 or 3 of these that I got off of some free list somewhere once upon a time. And the reason that I grabbed them, finding that they were available, is that they're one, and actually this over time this became less of a problem. But the interesting story on these is that back in 2003, when Linksys came out with this router, or shortly thereafter, some folks on one of the kernel mailing lists noticed, hey, it sure looks like this. The firmware of this router has been programmed with or has been compiled with a version of GCC that, as far as I can tell, no one has upstreamed anywhere. And so what gives? This is supposed to be GPL software. Whereas you use GPL software, you're supposed to cough up the source code. And so it's in an interesting sort of a gray area, right? Because it's not it was the compiler that Broadcom had produced for the chip that's in these, some sort of MIPS chip that's inside, and they had sort of failed to do this. But Linksys was sort of caught up in the sort of cast of in the sort of negative vibe around this, and so they eventually released the full source code for the firmware for this device. So it put it into this weird category where, unlike a lot of other devices at this time period where people needed to reverse engineer them, they had been sort of forced to cough up all of the source code through a combination of actual teeth to the GPL, but also just sort of they didn't want it to look bad. And so they, for a little while, these were kind of fun because they were one of the few devices that you could get and reprogram the firmware on them. And I'll show that in a little bit what that looks like. But you can essentially use them as they came, or you can install open source firmware that folks have continued to update even through the present. Since this time, of course, a number of different routers, folks have gotten very adept at reverse engineering them, and so even in cases where they're not particularly, the manufacturer is not particularly forthright with all of the necessary information, now frequently you can put the software that comes from this is a thing called DDWRT. So anyways, my first iteration of this was this, and so I'm not going to open it up, and you'll understand why in a moment. But inside is but I will pass it around in a moment. Is the ESP8266 board that Ting provided me a little bit ago, and it's hooked up to a single. I cut some holes in it to allow out the USB port. And then I attached a single potentiometer to it that I can use as an input device. The reason I didn't open it, I'm not going to open it up, will become apparent in a moment as I talk about more here. So that was sort of my first attempt, and we'll try that out in a moment here and see how that works. but I'm going to segue and talk about what happened at Maker Faire. So, and there's some more devices involved here, but this slide is probably out of order, but we'll do this story. So anyways, at Maker Faire, as it turns out, I had, of course, come prepared for the possibility that there was not going to be a network that I could connect to and have devices talking across this network. What I had not been prepared for was that the environment would have 30+ devices, and that through combinations of misfortune, my particular devices either were not willing to talk to that many devices or talk loudly enough in such an environment to operate. And so I was finding that I was getting on the order of, I was getting high signal strength if I put things physically close together, but I was getting pings that would fail 70% of the time, and just terrible environment. Things would come up, come down, change their minds. I'm amazed that we lucked out with the. I suspect it's probably because of use of UDP or something, but I can't. Yeah, so. Yeah, which is in some sense all you need, right, to flip the LEDs on and off. Whereas unfortunately with the web, I'm stuck with all these protocols built on TCP. So that was demo file at Maker Faire, and so unfortunately we put some haikus up on the projector, but we didn't get to do anything interactive, which is what I would have preferred. Of course, today by even mentioning demo fail in my description, I courted a disaster, which comes to the reason why I'm not opening this up. So I managed to get here and to say, oh, let's put things together and test it. And as I open up the inside, I notice, oh, there's a wire loose because, well, several reasons. One is, of course, Brad cannot solder. I mean, it's like this has been a truth. In fact, Brad, I won't tell the story here, but let's just say Brad can't even wire wrap. So, but fortunately, because of all the junk that Brad had tossed into his bag of trying to be prepared for the kitchen sink at Maker Faire, I had my soldering iron, and so with a little help from a borrowed knife and the ginormous blob of solder that I already had there, I think I've got this thing back in close enough to working order that I can at least do the demo here, although let's not jinx it by saying that. So the other devices, of course, that Dr. Ting helpfully has put into my hands that I had also intended to demo, but they suffered from the same fundamental issue, is of course Wi-Fi Boy. And for the purposes of the haikus, I focused mainly on input, and so just these 4 buttons on Wi-Fi Boy, and we'll see that in a moment when I demo. Basically, so Wi-Fi Boy is interesting. The original Wi-Fi Boy, it's because it's using the ESP 8266. It's got shockingly limited number of pins going in and out of it, and so the way that the buttons are connected is somewhat ingenious and a little bit odd. I actually had to for a little while wasn't hearing back from Derek and such, and so I was making guesses as to how the pins were connected, but basically it turns out that there's a single analog pin that's connected to the 2 buttons on the left, and then they actually they connect at different points through a resistor such that you get 3 different voltages depending on which buttons are depressed. You can't actually distinguish between, I believe it's the red button depressed and both the red and the green button depressed, but so that's, but you can look at those 2 voltages, and then the other 2 extravagantly actually have their own separate pin. And so similar to this knob, I had set them up to communicate with haiku in that way. Dr. Ting also very helpfully sent me a Wi-Fi Boy 32, the bleeding edge Wi-Fi Boy. It has 8 buttons, and it's using an ESP 32, which has a multitude of pins attached to it. So it actually manages to expend a separate pin per button. So there's plenty of those. Of course, Brad is foolish is another recurring theme here. So not having been able to at great lengths to figure out how to communicate with the display, Brad thought, oh, let's pry this back to examine. And so in the process has loosened the connection to the display. So Brad has managed to trash the display, although not before having then heard finally from Derek and realized, oh, the pins are configured this way, got the display to work if you shake it just right, and then realizing that that I had damaged the connection. So with my bad soldering skills, at some point I will resolder the connection there, which is what I had peeled back. But unfortunately, my investigative skills there are limited. Nonetheless, the buttons still function, so that I'll also show that. So I'm going to switch over to the demo. But if there's any questions at this point. Okay, we'll leave questions for after. So let's see. Let's start with the basics and warm ourselves up here. So I wanted to just briefly show. So let's make sure I'm on the right network here. I'm not on the right network. So I've got. I'm going to connect to FIG, the name that I gave to this router, and if I hit reload here, so this is this lovely interface, and you can, this software continues to be sort of updated indefinitely. So while the router is long since supported by Linksys, you can put this helpful piece of software on here. And although I think I haven't updated this one in quite some time, so it continues to be sort of flexible. There's a number of clever things it can do, of course, constrained by the hardware. It is actually capable of doing some very fancy things, like if you've got it on the same network, on the same. So it only, despite the two antennas, which I don't understand why they have two antennas, it actually can only be talking to a single channel at a time. But if you've got a Wi-Fi network if you've got your Wi-Fi network on the same frequency as another Wi-Fi network, you can actually set up your network as a proxy through to the other. And so I've done this before, although I didn't dare to try to set this up today for Stanford. But in theory, what one could do, if you manage to put this in the same channel with the Stanford network, is have it act as a gateway to that one. You could connect to FIG. From there, I could let everyone in on that network in through to Stanford. I've done this, as I said, in other settings, but I didn't dare fiddle with the settings here today, as I'm prone to screwing with the settings. So there's all kinds. It's a very flexible piece of software, and I believe there's even a lower level way you can get to what amounts to a command line and run some sort of very low level thing on here. So in any event, let's see. Let's see. So yeah. So this is the software DDWRT, and this is that router. And since then, of course, Linksys, as I understand it, the sequence of events was that the early versions of the chip the early versions of the router, they put fairly generous hardware and then basically crippled it lest it compete with some of their higher end products. Over time, they optimized it and put in cheaper hardware for a little while, and then gradually over time it got better. And so there's varying amounts of flash storage and whatnot on the device. All right, so the other problem that I confronted with all of this, and I'm gonna let's do the whole process here. So there's two ways that this can operate in terms of the haikus. I could connect to the haikus on the open internet and interact with them, but of course then the problem is that I didn't. Then I have the problem that I have to be on a router that lets me onto the internet and also allows me to talk to local devices. I could do that in places like my home or somewhere else where I can dive through, but here I'm talking on this device, so I need a place to run all of the haikus that isn't the open internet. So I'm going to run a local version of the haikus, which this actually prompted me to do something else I haven't done in a while. So I'm going to run with this -C option here that'll clear the database. And I don't know if I've ever shown this before, but with oops, that's the open. Okay, so this is oops. Oh, that's right. They've changed the. So I've been for years using App Engine to. It's now Clear Data Store. I've for years been using App Engine to run the server portion of the haikus. No small part. That's weird. Clear Data Store. Oh wow, they really want to make it hard. Yes. Okay. Allow. And then I'm going to kill it once and then drop this. Okay. So been using this for years because, of course, it lets you host things for free. But this is the way you would run it locally. And you can do this if you check out the haikus in total. But, of course, there are no haikus here, so that's not particularly useful. So separately, if you ever do check out the source code with the haikus, which are all sort of sitting out in the open, there's next to the app engine directory, which is the bit that's deployable, there's a tools directory. And in here, there's a tool that you can use to scarf down all of the haikus from the haiku database into a big JSON file that has all the haikus. So what I can then do is I can then upload these to this local server. Now, in the local server, I've gone and set. So on the real server, there's a password that prevents anyone from doing all of these things if they don't have the magic password. But locally, I've gone and frobbed the password, so it's an easy to remember password. And so now I can go and upload all of the haikus to this local server, so I will have them at our disposal as we play with this. In the meantime, let me go and hook up the appropriate devices. So I'm going to tempt fate and pass around the fragile knob here. Don't open the box. But I have this portable battery, which, let me turn it this way around. And so actually, while we're waiting for that upload, let's go over here to this router. And so if we hit reload on this page, I plug this device in on the battery, and with any luck, okay, why are we not seeing anything? Never curse the demo gods. Oh. Any moment now. Wiggle, wiggle. The router. Hold on. Let's see if it's under status. That's weird. Hold on. Of course. Okay, so the upload's complete. Let's go back here momentarily. So now we have and so the other thing is that this page has some caching. Come on. Stop caching. Nope. All right. So I put some fairly aggressive caching on this particular page because if you'll recall a number of years back when the come on. Come on. Let's go into this page. No. That's weird. It's got the uploads. Why are we not seeing the... Come on. That's really hot. Oh, I know what might be the problem. Did I type the password in wrong? Aha, okay, I might have typed in the wrong password. Okay, so it was uploading them and just quietly failing because the password was wrong. So let's give that a moment to percolate. All right, so meanwhile, actually that's a good opportunity to, so what I'm actually I should mention what I'm actually running on these boards. So I lazily, of course, used Arduino because that was the easiest setup for each of these. And it's a very straightforward program. It just connects to a canned network with the password on this device, and then once it's connected, it just handles an incoming connection. And in the case of the knob, for example, in the case of the knob, it just does an analog read and then prints that out as the response. And so let's see if we're back in business here. Let's open another ping pot. Okay, it's not seeing the pot. I'm going to try to unplug this and plug it back in and hope that that will magically work. Aha, we're in business. Okay, so what that looks like if you use the command line utility curl, I can curl from the pot and get back the number. It's clipped there because I don't have a carriage return, but it's 421. So if I now turn the pot all the way up to the top, I should get a higher number, 969. That's not as high as I would have liked. And I could turn it all the way down and get, come on. Come on. Okay, see, I bumped something on the lid. That's not good. Last try. Come on. That's not good. All right, well. In the meantime, let's see how we're doing on the upload. Okay. Ah. Any moment now. Why are we not seeing? Okay. Ah, here we go. Yay. Okay. So we have our database of haikus, and for some reason, oh, good. Good. And we even have the main page there. All right. So that's one thing down. All right. Let's see if we can figure out what's going on with the. All right. So, and you begin to see why I had demo fail. All right. So I see pot on the network. It says it's there, but it's not responding to pings, which is not what you would hope for. Okay, I'm going to dare pry it open and see if I've done something horrible. That looks fine. Why are you not working? Okay. I just noticed something interesting here, which is that like that there. Okay, well, all right, we're back in some kind of business. Maybe I'm not gonna. Okay, so we're getting some kind of number now. All right. So, anyways, let's move on to actually look at what this does in interaction with the haikus. So, at a very simple level, what I did was I've set it up so that when you have, well, I'll show this with my. So I have these my and mx words that are the mouse position in x and y. But what I've done is that I've changed it so that if it can reach the external device, it will then use the external device for mx. And so as I turn the knob down, oh, come on. As I turn the knob, okay. Come on. As I turn the knob, yeah, okay, we're not so quiescent. Okay. All right, let's try one more time. We're going to have to quickly. You can tell it's not working because it's hooked to that. No, that's, yeah. MX. All right, let me move on to the Wi-Fi boy device just because we're not having the best of luck with this one. I'm a little puzzled why. We'll try that in a second. All right, so with Wi-Fi boy, on this same, and I can pass this one around. So with Wi-Fi boy, I've done something a little different, which is I've connected this to, and let's go and confirm that we can see Wi-Fi boy on the network. So Wi-Fi boy I've labeled as W1, and if I do the same curl command, I get back a 0, but if I push down, let's say this green button, then I get back a 2, I push down the red button, I get back an 8, 4, 32. So, and I picked those seem kind of arbitrary, but I picked them so that they correspond to some things that that make sense in terms of the buttons on the haikus. So let's now go to the haikus. And the way this is exposed is that I can do, say, button 5, and now when I, oops, one of these buttons, there we go. So So I've got life from the from the thing. So I can then do, let's see, I can do x, x 10 times 1 mod button, and, oops, no, that's not quite right, x, oh, not mod, floor. So, oh, that's not quite what I wanted either. So I want to do x10 button, floor. So then I've got positions for each of the buttons. All right. But more interestingly, we can then go back to, let's say, this asteroids one, and I can then turn him around and control him. So I'm going to pass this around. Folks can control the. So it's the two on the far. Or you might let me reload too. No. So it's the two buttons on the far left and right are the left and right buttons, and then you can turn. And then that one shoots, and then so. There is thrust on the second button from the right. Oh, it does not wrap around, unfortunately. I'll hit reload. There we go.
Asteroids to fight. So I at least crudely accomplished my goal, although it leaves a little to be desired in terms of the practical execution of setting it up.
Cool. So now we have an understanding of the level of difficulty that, say, Nintendo has with getting Wii controllers.
Indeed. Well, of course, they're not struggling with the building it on top of protocols that are intended to keep you from, talking across the. Yeah. Yes.
Almost easy. Sliding off.
See if I
fall off the edge of the universe. Can you jet back? Or?
You could, but you have to guess where you're at. So.
What orientation you're flying.
So I'll show. So
if you flip it before you leave, and wait until after you're gone to start thrusting, you could make it back.
So
Try this with a gesture sensor. That'd be pretty cool.
So this is while they're passing around. So in the background here, you'll notice that what it's trying to do periodically is it pulls and tries to reach out and touch the pot sensor, or also W2 as well. And there's only 4 buttons.
Left, fire, thrust, right.
Yeah. And so it's periodically checking these. What it does, the way I've structured it so that it doesn't overwhelm the network, is that it will see if it can hear back and at a low frequency, and then if it finds a device like that one, then it will start aggressively polling it. You almost did it. Oops, can't see upside down. So we could change it to do. We can do X is X and 0 plus, and then we'll say X button, let's say 5 button dt 0.1 times plus 0 store. Could somebody, oh, that's not quite what I wanted. What did I do wrong here? 0 X at plus 5 button. That's the left button. Okay, and then I can. None of the other buttons are. Let's see. I think it's. Let's see. D. So that would be. dt times, and then. Okay. Well, here we go. So I got the right buttons here. All right. Try again now. Now they're equal strength. Whichever the two of them that I managed to. Okay. All right. Yellow. Yeah. This is blue. Ah, okay. So.
This is just like real life. More people are swerving out of their lane. Narrowly avoiding colliding.
Let me guess, they're backwards too, right?
Look, this is green, this is red.
Not if you stand on your head.
Yeah, and then we can, let's see, let's do.
Turn your view, but not where you're going.
That's the view, this is the direction.
Look for, tap one more of the buttons.
So this is green.
Oh.
This is red.
Oh. Oh, that's weird.
Oh, this has the direction. This is because I'm swerving.
Okay.
I gotta lay out the picture squad. Take picture squads and drive. Look at that. Now I'm going straight.
Yes.
No. Oh, there we go. See how hard that turns? Now if I come the other way. I'm not doing. Oh yeah, it's straightening out. There we go.
Woo! Okay.
You do a flight simulator in here.
So, whoa.
Yeah, that's great.
Now, if only we could make it more convenient. Let's see if we got. All right. Well, any questions? The pod is the pod is clearly cursed. So. Well, actually, now that the pod is damaged, I can show you how terrible it looks inside, which might explain why.
So if anybody's interested in looking at it, they can look at it at the break. Why don't we take a
Yeah.
few minutes of break and we'll get back to Sam Falvo, Wishbone, B4, Pipeline, Mustard Master, Silicon, so
Okay then.
And for those of you online and watching, we are having network issues. And we went down and up, and I'm trying to keep it up as much as possible. I don't know. The Stanford network went down, and then OBS Studio crashed. And so I'm hoping I can keep it alive. Maybe a reboot here is in order.